Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Colin. Great to see you, Colin. Enter the God. Great to see you. Inconsequential. Great to see you too. Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you too as well. Bernie. Great to have you on. Chatty Rant. Great to see you. Norflinger. Great to have you on. Eddie. Great to see you. Gene T. Keller. Great to have you on moderating. We have R Dub. We also have Tiny Demolition Lover. Hope you're very well tonight. We have Bridget Riley, great to see you. Lenan, great to have you on. Young Ralph, great to see you. CJM, great to see you too. Jacob, great to have you on, Jacob. We have Davey. Daily Blaze, great to see you. Hope you're well. We have also Young, great to see you. Or Jung, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Maximinius, great to see you too. Ministerian, great to see you. Hope you're well. We have also Roshin, great to see you, Roshin. Number 3, great to have you on. Mark Wilkie, great to see you. Ted, Ruth, Tom, Maggie, great to see you. Derek, and so many more. And Katrina Bryce, great to see you too. Hope everyone is very well this evening. Hope you had a good week. And hope you're going to have a good weekend too. But before the weekend arrives, of course, there is the live stream. Of course, we're going to talk about Brexit tonight, what's happening at the port of Dover, and some of the idiotic responses to that. And of course, the replacement for Boris Johnson, if he actually decides to leave. And there are even rumours that he's going to run again, or at least there's a campaign to get him added as a third candidate. That's insane, but then we're living in very crazy times. But I want to start off here first with Rishi Sunak camp says debates against Truss will change Tory members' minds. So there was a debate due to take place a few days ago between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, and then both of them pulled out. I think the next one is sometime soon, but it says here Rishi Sunak will launch his fight back in the Conservative leadership race from Margaret Thatcher's birthplace this weekend, with his supporters urging party members to delay voting until they have seen his take on Liz Truss in more debates. Sunak's campaign team is drawing up plans to try to reverse what one called a worrying trend after Truss pulled ahead by 24 percentage points in polling of the party members. About 160,000 members will have the chance to decide the next Prime Minister when they receive ballots from the 1st to 5th of August. They will cast their votes immediately or wait until the close to the 1st of September deadline. In a speech in Grantham on Saturday, in the Lincolnshire hometown of Thatcher, Sunak will try to move the debate on from tax cuts. A blitz of media appearances and visits are expected over the next fortnight, alongside a dozen hustings, where the candidates will go head-to-head over the course of a 6-week campaign. What's terrible about all of this is that there's a very small minority of people who are selecting the candidates, who will actually decide who is the Prime Minister. Let me see if there was a video I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can find it. I could try. Let me see. I think it was I'm incorrigible. Oh, incorrigible. I think this is it. Yes. Hopefully I can find the clip, but it was an amazing clip from a few years ago. I think it was 2019, where I think it was Channel 4 interviewed some people from the Conservative Party from a few years ago, and just give you an idea of what they're actually interested in, what they actually vote for. Hopefully we can find this. I don't have the clip handy, but it was shared yesterday, I think. Liz Truss there. Here we go.
Of survey.
So this was a survey carried out in 2019 of Conservative Party members. Okay, these are the people who will decide the next Prime Minister. Now, some of their positions may have changed slightly since 2019, but I highly doubt it.
We also commissioned a special YouGov survey of 892 Conservative Party members.
You're all right, mate.
While they were liberal on some issues, other results showed more traditional attitudes. Our interviewees were similarly split.
Do I believe the death penalty should be brought back for certain crimes? I'm undecided.
For certain crimes, yes.
I think it should be applied when it's perfectly obvious that somebody has murdered somebody.
For certain serious offences, I still think it would be appropriate.
Okay, so the problem with the death penalty is that how many times have we heard about people who had been executed, and then later through DNA evidence or because of an appeal, they actually had been the conviction was overturned. So people have died, people have been executed wrongly by the state, and also because of the appeals process, people can be on death row in the US, for example, for many, many years. And this is extremely expensive. It's actually cheaper to keep somebody in prison for their life than to put them on death row.
58% of party members told us the death penalty should be allowed for certain crimes. Has
I imagine corruption isn't one of them.
climate change been exaggerated?
I think concerns about climate change have been exaggerated.
How much, I'm not clear.
It grieves me when people still don't believe in it. It's almost, they're the flat earthers that can't really see.
I'm a flat earther.
Are you? Oh dear. Oh well.
46% of party members responded that concerns about climate change are exaggerated.
Now, once again, this may have changed somewhat, but you're still talking about a significant portion of the people who will select the next Prime Minister don't believe that climate change, or believe that climate change has been exaggerated. You know, one thing is to say, look, I'm not an expert, so I don't know. That would be the honest response. Look, I don't know if, but the scientists say, the vast majority of scientists say that climate change is taking place and it's man-made. Then we should listen to them. In the same way that, when you're having a heart attack, you go to a doctor, you don't actually go to the guy down the street. If you want to find out whether you should get open heart or some type of heart surgery, you go to a cardiologist. You don't go to the guy, that sits in the corner in Witherspoons.
And what about Islam? Is it a threat to the British way of life?
I have a problem that Islam is homophobic. I have a problem that it seeks the subjugation of women.
I think there's certain aspects of Islam which is not compatible with British life. For example, Sharia law.
56% of party members told...
But then look at the DUP. Look, there are aspects of Islam, yes, of course, but Islam is not one monolithic religion. There are liberal wings of it. There are people who there are Muslims who will drink beer and eat bacon. Okay, it isn't a monoblock, but of course, many people within the Conservative Party or supporters of the Conservative Party will obviously think it's what I see on TV, and they've never actually interacted with a Muslim. They've never interacted with somebody from another religion, and obviously they get most of their information from the Daily Mail or the Sun or whatever.
Told us that Islam is a threat to the British way of life. But what impact is this apparent move to the right amongst the party's grassroots having on the leadership battle?
Boris Johnson in the past, you've said Muslim women who wear veils look like letterboxes and bank robbers. Do you accept your words have consequences?
In the past few days, the Conservative Party has been dogged by accusations of Islamophobia, but has yet to set up an independent inquiry.
And there we go. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. My house is on fire, but it's not climate change. Yes, exactly. It's a complete disconnect from reality. These people are disconnected. And the worst thing about all of this is these are the people who will decide who the next prime minister is. There should be a general election. I understand that it's not a requirement of the system. But if you replace the leader, surely there should be a general election. Because Boris Johnson has been removed. Now, the people around him were supporting him until the very day he was removed from power. He resigned. That speaks volumes. How can you replace the figurehead at the top and then just say, well, we're just continuing as before? Ian Hughes, thanks so much for that super chat as well. Number 3, widespread ignorance is dangerous. Yes. Thanks so much, number 3, for that super chat. These people are dangerous because what they do is they wield significant power. They wield more power than the average citizen because they are the ones who will decide the next prime minister. Now, what people could do is, if you don't like the Conservative Party, you could become a member. And you could vote and decide who becomes the new prime minister. And you could decide a candidate that would be much more palatable. Unfortunately, you would need to do this in massive numbers to have any real impact, unfortunately. But it's possible. Fearless Wolf, thanks so much for that super chat. The good thing about climate change is we will all have a Mankini party. That's a good thing. I've said before, mankinis are a crime against humanity. Thanks for that super chat. Europe, you just want these damn mankinis. That's it. There's no getting away from that. Just going back to this with Rishi Sunak for a moment. It says here, I flew back from US to stop lockdown, claims Rishi Sunak. I flew back from the US to make sure to give the virus a fighting chance. No, he's trying to sell this idea that I flew back because I was fighting the lockdown, because the lockdowns were really unpopular with a certain wing within the Conservative Party, not the public, but within a certain wing of the party. So I fought the lockdown, not I fought the virus. I fought the lockdown. The former Chancellor and Tory leader candidate told LBC that the UK was hours away from a press conference announcing measures due to the spread of the Omicron variant. But he said he fought very hard against the system to stop the lockdown being introduced. Wow. As 2021 came to a close, Omicron became the dominant variant in the country and cases rose quickly, with Boris Johnson advising people to exercise caution around the build-up to Christmas, and health officials urged the public to limit their contacts. Rumours were abound that the government would bring in new restrictions as companies, especially in the hospitality sector, called for more support as people cancelled events. But on the 16th of December, Mr. Johnson said that there was no order for people to cancel gatherings and ruled out any lockdown by stealth. On the same day, the Treasury confirmed Mr. Sunak would be cutting a trip short, reportedly by 1 day, to return from the US to hold talks with business leaders over the impact of the variant. It followed questions whether around his whereabouts as cases rose, with Labour telling him to leave Hollywood and come back to reality. During an interview with Andrew Marr, Mr. Sunak said, "What I did in December was fly back from a government trip I was on overseas, and I flew back to the country to stop us sleepwalking into a national lockdown, because we were hours away from a press conference that was going to lock this country down again because of Omicron." There you have it. Yes, there was he didn't come back, to stop a vote or to support, for example, the Labour Party he didn't jump through hoops to support the Labour Party when it came to, I don't know, free school meals for children. No, he didn't support that. But he's, I don't believe this for a second, but he's claiming here that he flew back from a trip to stop another lockdown because lockdowns were bad. You know, we needed once again to give Omicron a fighting chance, and now cases are through the roof. The cases began to rise in this period as well. But you know, lockdowns were bad. Once again, this is about reaching out to the extreme within the Conservative Party. This is not for public consumption. This is because he needs to win over the lunatics within the Conservative Party. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Hi Max, all in the chat. Sorry, I said that Trussett's DMP and Chancellor would be Hope. I'm 2/3 wrong. Scary times it is. I said that Truss's Deputy Prime Minister and Chancellor would be Hope. I'm not sure I fully understand the comment, but I remember the last live stream you said something about the Deputy Prime Minister. It'd be interesting who will be the deputy. It would be interesting to see the cabinet that Sunak presents and Truss presents. I have a feeling Truss is going to put right-wingers, really far right-wingers into her cabinet, and Sunak will probably attempt to do something similar. But once you become Prime Minister, you don't need to keep the right wing, far right within the party on board. Now you're going into in a sense, campaign mode, because yes, there is a general election coming. They may try to call it earlier to try and stop some of the damage, but really, if Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister and she holds a general election anytime soon, she'll be wiped out. She's an absolute disaster, and we've seen that. You know, she crumbles when she's asked very simple questions. And and most of the questioning I've heard of Liz Truss has been very softball stuff, and by pretty friendly interviewers. Imagine when she's going up against someone a bit more aggressive. Alistair, thanks for that super chat. Ian Hughes again, thank you so much, Ian. Very kind of you for that support. Magic says, notice he didn't mention the meeting that was with the US drug companies over access to NHS and providing private health care. Yes, this was what he was actually doing when he was very well pointed out there, Magic. And thanks for that super chat. Yes, he was over in the US meeting with pharmaceutical companies to allow them greater access to the NHS. Once again, it's about the privatization of the NHS. And isn't it interesting that it's the Chancellor who's over there doing these deals and not the Health Secretary? You know, what other layer are we talking about here? Is it some fund that Rishi Sunak has his investments in? Is it about doing some sort of other business deals as well? Thanks for that super chat, Magic. DC, great to see you on the stream. Hi Max, please do a video about Gibraltar in the future. At the moment, Gibraltar residents cannot cross into Spain without hotel booking or valid reason. I'll send you a link on Twitter, highlighting. Thanks so much, DC. Do please send me a link, and I will check it out and do a response on it. Definitely, that's something. You know, once again, as you said, it's not been picked up by the media, and it is something that's affecting people in Gibraltar. You know, one of these things as well with Brexit is that the issue of Gibraltar was sort of put on the long finger, and it was described by Brexiteers as nobody's ever going to touch Gibraltar. Gibraltar's situation is not going to change, but the situation for Gibraltarians has changed. Thanks for that super chat, DC. So I'll await your message on Twitter. Thank you so much. But this idea that, once again, Rishi Sunak, I flew back to fight, not to fight the pandemic, but to give it a helping hand. So let's hear what the First Minister of Scotland had to say about Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. You can imagine.
I just think the whole thing is dismal. I don't have a preference because I think they'd both be terrible for Scotland. And, I'm here in Parkhead right now. I don't think there are many people in Parkhead or any part of Scotland that would vote for either of them, and therein lies the problem. Scotland keeps getting Tory Prime Ministers that we don't vote for. Scotland hasn't voted Tory in my entire lifetime, and yet for something like 2/3 of my life we've had Tory Prime Ministers. That's the deep democratic deficit that Scotland faces, and Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, whichever one is elected, is yet another Prime Minister that Scotland hasn't voted for and wouldn't vote for even if it was given the chance. We need to have change in Scotland that ensures we get the governments we vote for, and that is not Tory governments.
But getting a Section 30 order would obviously still be the preferential plan in terms of getting a second independence referendum. Do you think either of them would be more open to that than each other?
Well, both of them are hypocrites on this issue and democracy deniers. They've both made comments in the past. I saw one reported today from Liz Truss about the importance of referenda and settling constitutional questions. Rishi Sunak a few years ago said that there should be a referendum once Brexit had taken place. So they're hypocrites. They've changed their position on this to suit their narrow political interests, and both of them seem to think that it is acceptable to deny democracy, to tell Scotland what it's allowed to do, rather than accept that it is up to Scotland what future we choose. So yes, of course it would be the preference to have a UK government that respected democracy. I think that is a statement of the obvious, and if Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss, whoever emerges as the next Prime Minister wants to sit down with me and have a conversation about how we respect democracy, I'm happy to do that. But the route I have set out for Scotland to have its choice on independence doesn't depend on a Tory Prime Minister suddenly deciding that they do respect democracy after all. Scotland will have its say on independence. I hope that is through a lawful referendum on October the 19th next year. That is what we're planning for. But if Westminster blocks that, if it succeeds in blocking that, then the next general election will be the opportunity for Scotland to have its say.
Yeah, look, especially in this moment, none of the Tories are going to say anything like, we're going to respect Scotland. We're going to allow Scotland to have a second referendum. They're completely in Tory mode, where they have to reach out to the more extremes within the party. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this issue is brought up again, that they would say they would ban Scotland from having a referendum for the next 10 years or something like that, or within the time frame of this parliament or the next parliament or whenever. This idea, once again, remember, this is not about stopping independence. This is about stopping a referendum. This is not about, this is about protecting the union. We need to stop, Scotland from leaving. This is about allowing the Scots to actually have a referendum, and the Tories don't want them to actually have a referendum. Never mind leaving, it's no referendum, no choice. And that begs the question, well, how strong is the union if you won't even allow a referendum? And the people of the UK can't change the government, even if they wanted to. The Tories are able to change Prime Minister after 3 years. But the Scottish people aren't allowed even a choice after, 8 years, 9 years? Almost. So it's, once again, it's a complete hypocrisy. How long was Theresa May in power before she was replaced? Boris Johnson, 3 years. So the Tories are able to replace their Prime Minister, their leader, on a whim. But Scotland is not allowed to have a vote after 8 years on its future. So as we go further into this this leadership campaign, let me just check the. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Another super chat from Alistair. Moggy and Nadine Max, who will need to fix... okay. Yeah, I can imagine... I don't think Nadine Dorris will be Deputy Prime Minister or Jacob Rees-Mogg. But I could be wrong, and you could be right here by suggesting the fact that both of them appeared in front of number 10 in support of Liz Truss. It could be they could be attempting to get some sort of position in her cabinet, which wouldn't surprise me because both of them had held positions within Boris Johnson's cabinet. So Liz Truss might try to present herself as a continuity Prime Minister, so carrying on from Boris Johnson. Which would be popular with certain people within the party, but I don't think it would do her any favours going into a general election. You would say, okay, we got rid of Boris Johnson, we got somebody who's a type of Boris Johnson, who's just carrying on from Boris Johnson. No, we need a clean slate, and Liz Truss obviously isn't that. But it'd be interesting who will actually appear in her cabinet, but... I don't think either of those would be Deputy Prime Minister. I think if it's going to be somebody a bit more obscure, because it's going to be always somebody who'll have to play second fiddle to Liz Truss, and Truss wouldn't want to put somebody in a very powerful position like Deputy Prime Minister that could be a threat to her. So I don't think she'd be dumb enough to put somebody very famous, somebody very well known into that position, unless it's somebody who has agreed with her not to cause any problems. Anyway, it goes on to say here, how many members vote? About 160,000 members will receive a ballot pack in the post from the 1st of August, which will contain a paper ballot that can be returned by post. It will also contain details of how to vote online with 2 unique security codes that must be entered. The party is recommending people vote online if possible, and has said that it can only vote once, with only the last received vote counting if people do vote via both methods. When does the voting close? All ballots must be received by 5 p.m. on Friday, the 2nd of September. When will the winner be announced? On Monday, the 5th of September, the new leader of the Conservative Party and the Prime Minister will be announced. Mr. Johnson will cease to be either. That's what the plan is. But it's been a very strange 6 years, so I don't know. That's what we assume. When will the hustlings and debates take place? So there's going to be one on the 21st of July, which took place. Okay, the 25th of July, that's the BBC debate. 28th of July, 1st of August, 3rd of August, 4th, 5th, 9th, 11th, 16th, 17th, 19th, 23rd, 25th, and 31st. This is going to be they're going to be quite busy. And also, what's interesting is Northern Ireland. So how is it? I really hope at the Northern Ireland hustings that there's going to be not just DUP people there or pro-Tory people. There are really no pro-Tory people in Northern Ireland, but it will be interesting if there are some really difficult questions asked. I was going to say Scotland isn't, but Scotland is covered here. Darlington in Scotland. So no, but like, why isn't Scotland here? Isn't that strange? Oh no, Perth. Okay, Perth in Scotland. Sorry, but there's also Darlington in Scotland. So every part of the UK gets covered. There's also Cardiff as well. It'd be interesting to see certain ones like Birmingham, Manchester, what the reaction to the candidates will be there. Northern Ireland in particular, I'd like to see. And I hope at Perth there are some interesting questions asked. But we'll see. Liz Truss, who's always great at doing. Most of you probably seen this already. Liz Truss went to meet some kids, and didn't work out very well.
Meet you.
Thank you.
And what's your name? The cat's being Prime Minister.
This is so awkward.
Wow. So true.
Where's Boris Johnson? Oh, wait, are we on telly?
We hate it.
Boris is back at number 10 Downing Street.
Have they not kicked him out yet? Why are they not kicking him out? He doesn't go
Do me a favour, when you become Prime Minister, evict him.
He will have to move out at that point, that is true.
This was awkward. You know, the kids, amazing, these kids pulled no punches here. I imagine it would have been slightly different back in 2019 if Boris Johnson was there. They would have seen him as a bit of a clown. But this doesn't bode very well for Liz Truss. Not talking, of course, these kids are not going to vote, but it does, you know, it's starting off on the wrong foot. Boris Johnson has destroyed trust between citizens, subjects, and politicians. And people have decided, look, they're all pretty much the same. And replacing Johnson with Truss or replacing Johnson with Rishi Sunak is just more of the same. And it is quite awkward. You're trying to tell these children, yeah, no, Boris Johnson has to stay there because, well, yeah, we did vote to keep him in, but he had to go because he was embarrassing, and some of us resigned and some of us didn't resign, and then he said he'd resign, but he didn't immediately resign. Yeah, it is a bit complicated and embarrassing. But don't worry, the next person will be better. Will they be a liar? No, not really. I'll only lie about certain things, like I did in the past. You know, when I said that leaving the EU would be a bad idea, I actually lied about that. It was a good idea, even though it turns out to have been a bad idea. Lots of farming and posh private schools in Perth. Okay, so they've decided, yeah, it's best to go to a friendly area in Scotland, not to somewhere we're actually going to be challenged. Perth is SNP. The Tories chose it because it's in the middle. Okay. It's like, we have to go somewhere in Scotland. Where can we go? Glasgow? No. Edinburgh? No. Can we go to Fife? No. Shetland? Maybe, but it's not probably the best place to go. So let's go to somewhere that's in the middle, as you said, well pointed out. Now, Liz Truss has been asked about what she's going to do if she does become Prime Minister. How is she going to help people, for example, people who are struggling at the moment because of the cost of living? And she said this during an interview with Sky News today.
The IFS
yesterday
morning has said that without spending reductions, your tax cut plans may exceed the Treasury's fiscal headroom. Would you be comfortable with breaking your own fiscal rules?
My plans do not exceed the headroom. I'm very clear that they are about £30 billion worth of costings, and those are affordable within our current headroom. But what is not affordable is putting up taxes, choking off growth, and ending up in a much worse position. And many international bodies, including the OECD, say that our current policy is contractionary. It's likely to lead to a recession, and we simply cannot afford that. What I want to do is put money back into the pockets of hardworking people. I'm here in Peterborough today meeting families who are struggling with the cost of living. That's why we need to reduce national insurance. That's why we need to have a temporary moratorium on the green energy level to reduce people's fuel bills so we can help families.
But that represents a small percentage of the rise. The green levy is nothing compared to the actual prices that are being charged by the energy companies. The greatest rise, the biggest percentage of the bill is the new rise in the cost of energy. It's nothing to do with the green levy. So getting rid of the green levy is not going to really have an impact on the cost of the bills. Very, very minimal impact. And what you're doing actually by removing the green levy is you're taking away money from the government that the government has access to, and you're allowing the energy companies to get away with it. Now, what happened to the windfall tax? Remember the Tories were talking about having a windfall tax? What happened to that? Did it disappear? Is it going to actually go through, or what? You could nationalise the energy companies and then set the price yourself, but you don't want to do that because that would piss off people within your party who have investments in these energy companies. So they would prefer you to take away the green levy because it will not affect their profits and the dividends that those shareholders eventually receive. It will be window dressing. It will look like we're actually doing something, but in reality you're not. And, this window dressing will last so long until people realize, my bills have not gone down. My bills have actually gone up. So that's not helping. So let's just try again.
Families, we can grow the economy and we can grow those tax revenues in the right way.
Now, you've also said that over the last 20 years, economic policy has not delivered for Britain. For 12 of those 20 years, we've had Conservative Prime Ministers. For 2 of those 20 years, you yourself were in the Treasury. Was that policy that you presided over wrong?
We have to recognise that we are in one of the worst global crises for a generation, the COVID crisis. And now is the time to think about how we do things differently and how we help our economy grow after this really difficult economic shock. That's why I'm advocating tax cuts, but I'm also advocating broad reform to enable more investment into Britain, to enable more opportunities, to enable more businesses. We've left the European Union. We need to get those laws off our statute books. We need to do things differently, and we need to unleash all the potential of the British people.
So when is this potential coming? It's been 6 years and there hasn't been any potential. Now we're going to unleash this potential. What potential? Like, the trade deals that she signed with Australia and New Zealand and Japan are absolute crap. They've benefited, for example, in the case of New Zealand farmers selling lamb to the UK, and they've thrown UK farmers under a bus. Same with beef when it comes to Australia. Australia and New Zealand are very happy with these trade deals. British farmers are not.
That's what I'm determined to do.
All she says is, I'm determined, I'm determined, I'm determined. I'm going to deliver, I'm going to deliver, I'm going to deliver. But it's just empty rhetoric. It means nothing.
Do you take any responsibility for the lack of growth when you were a Treasury Minister?
When I was a Treasury Minister, I was in charge of public spending. I controlled public spending effectively. We still haven't done enough, though, on unleashing the potential of the British economy. And that is about having lower taxes. It's also about making sure that we've got the right reforms in our economy. We can speed up projects like railways, roads. We need to be faster at doing things, and we need to look at the best in the world and make sure we're matching and exceeding them.
Do you think that your opponent in this race, Rishi Sunak, could he win an election as a Tory Prime Minister?
I think the problem is that if we continue with our current economic policy, which is forecast to lead to a recession, it will be very hard for Conservatives to win an election. What voters will judge us on is delivery. Are we seeing the growth? Are we seeing the opportunities? Are we seeing the spades in the ground?
No, you're not going to see those opportunities. You're not going to see that growth because, first of all, there is high inflation at the moment and there's no attempt to bring that down because it's out of your control in a sense because it's external factors. And second, Brexit is creating a lot of problems for businesses. So unless you're going to roll back Brexit, then you're going to be waiting for some time before you see real growth.
And I'm somebody, in every government job I've done, I've got things done, whether it's at the Foreign Office with our tough sanctions regime on Russia, whether it's at trade with the trade deals with Japan and Australia.
How can she stand there and promote the trade deal with Japan and Australia? How can she stand? I think it was not her for New Zealand, it was Trevelyan. But with Australia, for example, or Japan was completely useless, but Australia really damaged UK farmers. UK farmers are not happy with the trade deal. How can you stand there and say, yeah, I've delivered on these things? You got a trade deal. Wow, wonderful. Just don't look at it. Just don't compare it to the current situation. Then it's perfect. Then it's wonderful. It's a wonderful trade deal.
I'm somebody who pushes through, gets things sorted out and gets things done. That's why I want to be Prime Minister. This is a critical time for our country. We need bold action. We are in economic difficulty. The whole world is in economic difficulty. It's not time for business as usual.
You've talked in this campaign about governing as a true Conservative. Has the current Prime Minister not been?
We set out a fantastic manifesto in 2019 about unleashing the potential of everybody in Britain, about levelling up. The reality is we've had COVID, which was a massive shock. We've delivered Brexit. We've delivered the vaccine.
We delivered Brexit. We're still talking about Brexit. The people in Dover are suffering the consequences of Brexit at the moment. Queuing for passports to be stamped. Wasn't necessary to stamp passports before. Now it's necessary. So they have to queue. And Liz Truss, let me see if I can find it. Where was it? So here, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss said the chaos at Dover was unacceptable and said the UK needs action from France to stop it happening again. So we need to, meet with the French and agree with them something to stop these delays at the port of Dover. Imagine if there was a way of doing that. Imagine if there was a way of working with other European countries together in some sort of union where you could actually put pressure on them to do something. Or imagine if you were part of this sort of union where it wouldn't be actually necessary to stamp passports because you would have an agreement. There would be movement would be free in some sense. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Obviously, that's just pie in the sky thinking. It's not going to happen at any time. But it's ridiculous. The French, the UK needs action from France. You're going to tell the French what to do. when you talked about giving them money to stop boats from crossing the sea, and it turned out that you weren't actually giving them any money, but you were saying that you were, and then you were complaining that they weren't stopping these boats. And they have said, just is absolute ridiculous. Alistair, thanks very much. That super chat. Heard a campaign on cancelling direct debit and asking for paper bill to make it hard for energy companies to get the money, still pay but make them wait. That's interesting. That's very interesting because yes, the direct debit means they have the money straight away. Well, if they have to pay you, if you have to pay a bill by post, or if you have to go to the post office to pay it, or some office to pay it, it takes time, and it has to be processed, and it's an extra cost for the companies. That's why they would prefer just direct debit. That's interesting. Definitely look into that. Wee Scott's dog, great to see you on the stream. Hugs to you, and I'd love to throw you a bone as well, as I saw there as well. Please take care. But Liz Truss is a pathetic individual.
But now is the time to realise the promises we made in that manifesto, because people who voted for us, who voted Labour all their lives, want something different. They wanted something new. They want more enterprise. They want more investment. That's why we've got to keep taxes low, and that's why we've got to do those reforms so that we can realise that post-Brexit potential of Britain.
And just very finally,
post-Brexit, all she does is she talks about unleashing Brexit, unleashing the post-Brexit potential of Britain. What is this potential? What are the benefits? She hasn't actually pointed to any benefits. She said, yeah, we've done some trade deals, but the trade deals are crap. What are the actual benefits? I'd love for somebody to sit down with her and ask her to list some of the benefits of Brexit and to actually push back when she says, oh, we've done these trade deals. Okay, but the trade deals are bad for UK farmers. They have complained about it. Even show them the clip of the UK farmer saying this is shit.
Can a Prime Minister win back trust from the British people if they've received a fixed penalty notice for breaking their own COVID rules?
The thing about me is what you see is what you get.
Yes, right. What you see is... She said that without actually smiling. What you see is what you get. So when people thought that you were an anti-monarchist back in the 1990s, that's what they saw. That's what they got. When you said that you were a Remainer, but then you jumped on board the Brexit bus, that was... Once again, this... What you see is what you get. No, what you see is a liar, and what you get is a charlatan. My God.
I've always been honest with people about what I can deliver. I don't make promises I can't keep, and I will...
Yes, you do. Like, you were talking about triggering Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol. You were telling the DUP, I'm ready to trigger Article 16 when you were Brexit minister or whatever the hell you were filling in for when Lord Frost left. But you didn't do that. So you either decided not to because it wasn't convenient, or you lied. Which is it?
Will completely level with the public about, first of all, how tough things are going to be, but also the hope that they can have about the future, because I have a positive vision for Britain, and I will be helping families immediately with the cost of living.
By cutting taxes for businesses. Because at the end of the day, this is about cutting taxes for corporations and multimillionaires. This is what it's about. It's not about helping ordinary people. If you wanted to help ordinary people, you would provide them with the money they need. Now, you haven't talked about that. You've talked about cutting taxes. So how are you helping people through a cost of living crisis? Oh, yes, you've also said, I'm going to cut the green levy. But that's... If someone's bills are £600, for example, and the green levy is 10% of that, I don't even think it's 10%, that's not going to help people. It's actually going to make it more difficult for the government, because the government will have less money because they've removed this levy. You know who will benefit? The energy companies, because you're not actually attacking them. They're going to still make huge profits, and they're still going to pass on those profits to and dividend in the form of dividends to their shareholders. There's no incentive for them to actually cut their prices. Now, a very good incentive would be if you said, I'm going to nationalize these energy companies. You don't actually have to nationalize, but the threat of nationalizing would cause them to cut their prices, would force them to review their profits, in a sense. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Actually, guys, we're halfway through the stream, so I just want to take a short break. Max, Liz Truss is a slapper. Okay. Imagine Michael Lynch interviewing her. Yes, that would be wonderful. She won't do interviews like that, of course, because she'd actually be challenged. She just does interviews where she's asked a list of questions, and she just regurgitates whatever she's been told to say, and that's about as far as it goes. You know, when you actually see her interviewed by, you know, I'm no fan of Andrew Neil, but when Andrew Neil interviewed her a few years ago, he tore her to pieces. He asked her, how many houses, how many low-cost houses has your government built in the last year, or whatever it was? And she said, I don't have the numbers in front of me. And he said, I do, it's 0. Okay. She was asked by Eddie Maher on LBC, after she voted, after the Brexit vote, she said, like, he asked her, would you be in support of a second referendum on Brexit? And she said, no, people have made their decision, they're not going back on it. And then he said, yeah, but you changed your mind. And she said, yeah, but I changed it for the good reason. Bloody hell. Anyway, guys, let's take a short comedy moment and then be back in just a second with the serious Brexit stuff. More Brexit stuff. Yay.
Before granting you entry to Italy, you must first answer these simple questions. What are the 3 official languages of Italy?
Italian, Sicilian, and speaking with your hands.
See. On which side of the road do they drive in Italy?
But both.
See. How do Italians like to start the day?
With an espresso and an argument.
See. Who secretly holds all the power in Italian society?
The mothers.
See. What is the most terrifying thing for an Italian to wake up to find lying in their bed?
Silvio Berlusconi.
Sì, certo. What far-right leaning institution is well supported in Italy?
The Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Sì. Where can you find the statue of David?
The LA Galaxy Stadium in Los Angeles.
Sì. Name the beautiful, saucy yet complex Italian dish Italy is famous for.
Monica Bellucci.
Sì. Name Italy's biggest bank.
The Trevi Fountain.
Sì. What city within Italy is frozen in time due to a terrible act of God?
Vatican City.
Sì. What sentimental item do most elderly Italian women keep in their homes?
Their middle-aged sons.
Sì, certo. I think I'll move on someday. What can erupt in Italy at any time?
Football violence.
What is the national sport in Italy?
Diving.
Where in Italy are you most likely to be robbed?
In a taxi.
Finally, where are tourists in Italy required to observe local customs?
When in Rome.
See. Unfortunately, your visa has been declined.
What?
See. Welcome to Italy!
That's quite bad. Okay. But some of it is true. Okay, let's move on. Tongue in cheek, of course. As I said, sorry, I was talking about that before. Let's move on to what Liz Truss here is talking about. Warning, Doverport chaos could spill into weekend as queues last 6 hours. Nothing to do with Brexit, remember, folks. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. We have a climate crisis with nutters in charge. It really is the case that the people who should be in charge are the scientists. Something I remember some years ago was when Barack Obama took over from George W. Bush when he won the election. He put in charge, I don't know if it was in 2012 or in 2008, but when he became president, he put a scientist as head of the Department of Energy, and the scientist pushed forward policies based on supporting renewable energy, for example. This is the approach that needs to be taken. People with real skills need to be hired. And unfortunately, at the top we have the opposite. People who have no skills. Boris Johnson, what skills did Boris Johnson have? Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak? Well, Rishi Sunak has worked in investment banking and Goldman Sachs, I think. But that's not going to help people. Liz Truss, what has she done? I think she's been a member of parliament most of her career. What has she actually achieved? How has she helped people? She's voted against measures to help people. So these are the wrong people in charge. And unfortunately, I don't see anything really changing over the next number of years. I hope that if the Labour Party get into power, they're going to really take this thing seriously. Of course, there's going to be the sniping from the side, from the Conservatives, the right-wing media. Every time, we see it with with Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. Every time he tries to do something good, he's criticised by the right-wing press. But it doesn't stop him, and that's important. Thanks, number 3. There are good leaders out there. Most of them are crap, but there are some shining lights. It says here, holidaymakers have been warned chaos that triggered 6-hour queues at Dover could spill into the weekend after the port declared a critical incident that it blamed on woefully inadequate French border control staffing. It's like, we agreed to have the border inside the country and the French running the border, and now it's, there's nothing we can do about that. The Kent port apologised to travellers facing long waits to cross the Channel on an extremely busy day for travel across the UK as schools across England and Wales break up for the holidays. The AE warned that a bumper-to-bumper summer on the roads, while train strikes and surging demand at Britain's strained airports are also expected to add to holiday makers' headaches. Chaotic scenes around Dover took centre stage on Friday as the summer getaway began in earnest. The Port of Dover Chief Executive Doug Bannister declared a critical incident, telling the BBC that the port had been badly let down by French border control that were insufficiently resourced despite advance warning of high traffic volumes. French police blamed an unexpected technical incident in the Channel Tunnel that delayed the morning arrival of border control officers in Dover by more than an hour. The tunnel operator Getlink said a signal cable was repaired at 7:30 a.m, but it was not to blame, pointing out that the critical incident at Dover was declared several hours earlier. So, on the one side, you have the French saying it's nothing to do with us, and then the British on the other side saying, yes, it's everything to do with you. As long tailbacks developed once again, look, none of this would be necessary if you didn't have to stamp passports. But you have to stamp passports because Great Britain is a third country. Not the UK, because Northern Ireland doesn't have this sort of problem. But if you're travelling from Great Britain into the EU through Dover, it seems you have to have passports stamped. He forecast that the problems could continue into Saturday and urged the British government to work with Paris to clear the backlog. The Minister for Europe, Graham Stewart, said discussions were already taking place, blaming the French authorities. Dover is directly affected by any French staffing shortage because of the juxtaposed control where travellers clear French entry requirements at the port before crossing the Channel. P&O Ferries, one of the main passenger operators from Dover, told customers that to allow at least 6 hours to clear security checks. 6 hours? While rival DFDS, which runs up to 30 sailings a day between Dover and Calais, advised 4 hours to check in and clear border controls. The Port of Dover said, "We know that resources are finite, but the popularity of Dover is not a surprise. Regrettably, the police Al Français resource has been insufficient and has fallen far short of what is required to ensure a smooth, fast weekend after the peak holiday getaway period." One passenger who was due to sail from Dover on Friday decided in the last minute to spend £400 on alternative travel arrangements to dodge the port queues. John Till, a railway manager from West Dorset, was worried about being stuck in a tailback for hours with his 87-year-old mother, Edna Johnson, on the way to visit friends in Germany. At half 4 this morning, I made a snap decision to rebook travel with Brittany Ferries and travel from the Port of Poole, which is a lot more expensive. There was no way I was going to let my mum down. Kent residents were warned earlier in the week that the country's roads were getting busier amid the start of the summer getaway. The Kent Resilience Forum, a partnership of agencies and organisations, told locals they needed to prepare for the journeys that take longer than normal. And the people in Dover, around Dover, are not very happy. People in Kent are extremely angry about this because this has forced many trucks to park in side roads and on pavements and stuff like this. Michael Fabricant, great to see you on the stream. Hey Maxi baby, looking forward to my promotion to Foreign Secretary in Lizzie's cabinet. I promise not to, we guys. Well said, Michael. Great to see you on the stream. I hope you're well. Very great to see. As always, the I promise not to wing out. I imagine you will be probably promoted to a position in Liz Truss's cabinet. God forbid. Was it Minister of Fashion? Sorry, my God. I'm saying in Italian. The disruption, it goes on to say, the disruption was caused by a shortage of ferries following P&O's ferry mass sacking of crew members. The poor weather conditions combined with the temporary outage at the key post-Brexit customs system. The port has previously said the post-Brexit trading regime has prompted longer processing times at the border, including time-consuming passport and paperwork checks. Once again, these were not required pre-Brexit. They're a requirement post-Brexit. And, you know, every few minutes that's added to a queue makes the queue much, much longer. And it creates more and more problems for people. In the case somebody having to abandon the queue altogether and spend £400 to take a different route. But once again, as we saw at the beginning of this, if you have the French border inside the UK and it's staffed by French border officials, then there's nothing you can really complain about. This is, in a strange sense, it's a little bit like in Northern Ireland, where the EU are telling the British government, okay, you agreed to carry out the checks in Northern Ireland and you're not doing it. You know, it's up to you to carry out the checks. They're your staff that should be carrying out the checks, and the UK government has not provided enough staff. The EU has been criticising the UK for doing this. In a sense, the UK is criticising the French for not providing enough staff. At the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it, unless you give the French money. But I don't think that's going to work. Boris's barber mop. Michael is Boris's barber mop. Okay. Anyway, staying with Brexit for a while, there's another story here about the divorce bill. Remember the quote-unquote divorce bill? So it says here, European interest rates rise may push up UK's divorce bill by £5 billion. I heard a funny response to this by Brexiteers saying, well, if we devalue the pound, then we'll have to pay the EU less. But the EU doesn't get paid in pounds, the EU gets paid in euros. Or euro. Anyway, it says here, increasing interest rates in Europe could push up the UK's Brexit divorce bill by £5 billion, the government's Treasury Office has said. The new estimate comes as the European Central Bank increased its interest rates for the first time in 11 years by 0.5 percentage points ahead of the 0.25 percentage points expected by economists. Simon Clarke, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, made clear in a written statement that rising interest rates affected EU pension obligations, which were a driving force behind the new divorce bill estimates. The Brexit divorce bill includes, it's not really a divorce bill, but anyway, the divorce bill includes the working out of long-term guarantees on certain lending and spending by EU institutions while the UK was still a member of the bloc. For example, while the UK was a member, it agreed to participate in certain requirements, and when it left, it was still obliged to pay into those requirements, into those programs. Originally, the government estimated the bill covering spending commitments would be between 35 and 39 billion pounds. This included loan guarantees by the European Investment Bank for infrastructure and other projects signed off during the UK's membership. No finite settlement was agreed, as the bill takes account of performance of loans. The Treasury's latest estimate put the figure at £42.5 billion, up from £37.3 billion a year ago. You know, a very small percentage increase on £1 billion is significant, has a big impact. Small number affecting a big number has a big impact. In a written ministerial statement, Clarke said the rise was primarily down to the UK's obligations for EU pensions. Okay, by the end of the year, the UK was said to pay, says it has paid 5.8 billion to the EU as part of the agreement. The Treasury spokesperson added, the unprecedented rise in inflation and changes in discount rates have increased our pension liability, which is the biggest reason for the increased estimate. The true cost of the settlement is confirmed when payments are made based on the value at the time. The Treasury continues to monitor and verify these payments in line with the negotiated settlement agreement. Yeah, because no absolute figure was, no final figure was agreed. It was the figure at the time. Obviously, it was, how do you say, suspect to change. The European Commission had calculated the divorce bill higher than the UK's had at 41 billion. At the time, the three-party agreement was also included pacts on Northern Ireland and EU citizen rights. So it's the worst part about this is that because the UK has to pay more as part of this bill, but it's also left out of certain programs which are very important. This says here, the shadow of the withdrawal agreement continues to be cast on EU-UK relations, with Prime Minister hopeful Liz Truss threatening to tear up the Brexit trade agreements for Northern Ireland. In turn, the EU has delayed ratifying the UK's associate membership of the flagship £80 billion Horizon Europe Science Research Programme, causing the loss of funding for some academic projects already greenlit by the European Research Council. On Thursday, 24 groups, including the Royal Society, the Russell Group of Universities and Cancer Research UK, called on the two candidates battling to become the UK's Prime Minister, Truss and Rishi Sunak, to commit to keeping the UK leading place in research, development and innovation. In a letter to the candidates, they urged them to make membership of Horizon Europe priority and to commit to spending 3% of GDP on RDI, research, development and innovation. They probably won't, because it has the word Europe in it. So they will not support membership of Horizon Europe because it has the word Europe in it. Now, you might think that's trivial, that's petty on my side. No, but that's what they won't sign up to something that has the word Europe in it, because they have to keep idiotic Brexiteers within the party who are angry about everything. They have to keep those people on board. So they will say, no, I'm not signing up to Horizon Europe because it contains the word Europe. And you know, if that would piss off the Mark Francois and the Brexit hardman Steve Baker types. So I'm not going to do that. I want to keep those people happy at the expense of research and development and innovation in Britain. Wonderful. You know, the right approach here would be, yes, we're going to implement the Northern Ireland Protocol because we signed up to it. We mightn't like it, or we mightn't understand it, which is probably more likely, but we're going to implement it because we agreed to it. Now, can we have access to Horizon Europe? Yes, you can. Great. Now we're going to have access to this £80 billion that's for research and development and innovation in Europe, which we will have access to, and our scientists will be able to participate in. And then everyone's happy. Apart from the friggin' DUP. But who cares about the DUP? Horizon covered by the European Court of Justice of the European Union, which they don't like. But like, most people will not understand. So they could say, yeah, we're not signing up to the European Court of Justice, and they just sign up to it. Brexiteers wouldn't really understand that. Maybe your hardliners within the ERG might get whiff of it, but you could just deny it. But no, of course not. And then just throw in some sort of distraction. It works before, it works for everything else. Thanks, Magic, but they don't like it because it has the word Europe in it. I can guarantee that's why. They don't understand how the European Court of Justice works or its jurisdiction. They just don't like the word Europe. So if it was changed to the Court of Justice or the International Court of Justice, they'd be probably okay with it. But because it has Europe in it, the Brexiteers don't want anything to do with it. Like, I imagine, Mark Francois and others have tore up their, destroyed, burnt, or incinerated any records they have with the, with music from Europe, the band from the 1980s. Or when they hear it on the TV, now it's from Europe, and they become angry and switch channel or turn over the radio or close down the YouTube video, whatever. Anyway, but this is just once again insanity taking over and insanity replacing insanity. Boris Johnson and his insane approach to Brexit being replaced by another insane approach to Brexit. Liz Truss is just going to be more of the same. And with that, the European Union launches 4 more legal cases against the UK over Northern Ireland Protocol. The European Union has expressed anger over the backing group given by MPs for legislation overriding post-Brexit arrangements for Northern Ireland by launching further 4 legal cases against the UK government. So once again, this is the Northern Ireland Protocol bill that's been cleared by the House of Commons with a significant majority. Now it's pretty much ready for, I think it just needs to go to royal assent, but first it will arrive in the Lords and then it'll probably go through the Lords and it will be signed into UK law eventually. I don't know whether they will actually use it. They may never actually use it, but having this type of law already ready to go, even if you don't use it, is a breach of international law. So the EU is responding to that. The claims concern past failures to implement the Northern Ireland the 2019 deal agreed with Boris Johnson, but the EU has been spurred by action by this passage through the Parliament of a bill that would rip up certain agreements. The current agreement, sorry. On Wednesday, the Northern Ireland Protocol bill cleared the House of Commons at its third reading, the final stage in the Commons, by 267 votes to 195, and will arrive at the Lords in the autumn. The 4 legal cases, which cite the failure to enforce EU customs and VAT and excise rules, come on top of 3 other cases already in motion that are heading to judgment by the European Court of Justice. The EU Court has said that the power to impose multi-million euro fines daily on the UK and its judgment would be within the first step towards the bloc taking punitive action against the mechanisms within the Brexit deal. And who's going to pay for this? It's the British taxpayer. So Boris Johnson and Liz Truss fuck about. Sorry for my language, but that's what they're doing. And who's going to suffer the consequences? Ordinary British people. They don't want this. They want the Northern Ireland Protocol implemented. They don't care about the DUP, because this is about keeping the DUP and hardline Brexiteers happy. That's what it's about. And ordinary British people are going to pay, because this is going to be paid. These bills, these fines are going to be paid through taxpayer money. Money that could be spent on hospitals, or could be spent on infrastructure, or schools, or welfare, or anything. Could be spent on something valuable, something useful. But no, it's used to pay a fine. Why don't the Tories, do a whip around and pay these fines instead? Why doesn't Boris Johnson, who's still in power at the moment, he hasn't left, why doesn't he reach down the back of his sofa or get on the phone to one of his donors to pay these fines? Because it's his responsibility. He's the one driving the car down the motorway above the speed limit. Why doesn't he pay the fine? Of course, he wouldn't be able to pay them. They're multi-million-pound fines. David, thanks so much for that super chat. Trade war in the offing. There are no winners. Thanks so much once again for that super chat. There are no winners in a trade war. There are only losers. Only some losers are bigger than others. And as I said before, the EU is going to come out better. The EU is going to get damaged by this because they don't want to have trade wars, and it's damaging economically. But businesses in the EU, if they have problems to sell goods to the UK or to deal with the UK in general, they can go elsewhere. Some of them can't, but most of them can. For the UK, it's much more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult. And also the UK reputation is being damaged by this. Who's going to do trade deals with the UK if they're willing to tear up agreements 3 years after? Like Australia and New Zealand agreed to these things because it benefits them. But if there's a trade deal that you're signing where you're looking at, okay, how much am I getting out of this? Well, it's not fantastic, but it's a bit. I'm having to give something because the UK is a large economy. But if they're willing to, if they're going to say, well, we're going to tear up this agreement 3 years later, then why would you sign a trade deal with them? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, moving on. As I was saying, this is from before. This is from some months ago, I think it was. But this is Australian TV, New Zealand TV, sorry, talking about Liz Truss's trade deal with that country.
British farmers have reacted with shock to the terms of a new free trade deal with New Zealand.
The deal will see Kiwi meat imported without tariffs, and farmers in the UK say they get nothing in return. As Europe correspondent Lisette Raymer reports, they fear it will change their businesses dramatically.
A world away from rejoicing Kiwi farmers, their welly-wearing counterparts feel as though they are the sacrificial lambs of the free trade deal.
We're not competing on a level playing field.
The UK's less intensive approach to farming means their offerings could quickly be outpriced and outstocked by New Zealand's once tariffs are removed.
For a lot of people, it is all about price. So when you are at the shelf and you've got one leg at this price, one leg at another price, people have got to make those decisions.
And she's right. During a cost of living crisis, maybe not when it comes to lamb, but meat in general, you're going to look at the price and you're going to say, well, am I going to buy the more expensive British product, or am I going to buy the cheaper Australian or New Zealand product? And no matter, patriotism will not come into this. You will go for the cheaper product, especially if you are on a limited budget.
Quota of tariff-free lamb exported to the UK increased sharply over the next 15 years. And after that, it's a complete free-for-all.
I think the main message is the fear of unknown.
The brave new free trade world will come around even faster for dairy and beef.
Well, oh, George, I haven't got any apples for you, sorry.
Liz Webster knows the feeling. The deal has left her wanting too.
It's us surrendering to you, New Zealanders, and giving you a great deal, and we're getting nothing out of it.
While the deal is expected to boost New Zealand's GDP by $970 million, or around 0.3%, the impact on Britain's economy is expected to be negligible.
And there you have it. No real benefit. A slight benefit for New Zealand, but no real benefit for the UK. And Liz Truss there in some time ago talking about how these are the benefits of Brexit. It just gets worse and worse. I want to move on, guys. Let me read some more of your comments before we move on. This is what they want. Canada, US. Fishy Rishi and Ritz Truss Rush. Why is the lamb shank shipped 12,000 miles around the earth cheaper than the local produce? Because farms in the UK pay tax on fuel while shipping's not. Good, well said. No DLC. Great to see you on the stream. No DLC. New Zealand lamb is very tasty, so no complaints there. Farmers have planted sweet potatoes and sugar beet this year in many areas. Easy to pick by those with huge tractors. Very low maintenance manpower requirement. That's interesting, Hugh. So thanks for that comment. Yeah, I think I talked about this in a video on the channel, how farmers are going to switch. They're going to start producing different crops. As you said here, sweet potatoes and sugar beet, they're easier to pick, so you need fewer workers. Is this the solution? I don't know. It sounds like a compromise, of course, but are British people going to start eating more sweet potatoes than other produce? I don't know. Send all the Tories to Rwanda. UK will be happy, says Ice Queen. Ice Queen, thanks so much for that super chat. Well, they keep saying that Rwanda is a wonderful place, so I'm sure Priti Patel and Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock and who else? Michael Gove and others, they would love to go. Liz Truss as well, of course. They would love to go to Rwanda because they keep saying how it's a wonderful place, and it's not a deterrent, but it is a deterrent. It's both a deterrent and not a deterrent at the same time. Thanks for that. The eating habits must change if society is going to change. We are what we eat. This could be a Brexit benefit, and I'm not being cynical here, but this actually could be a Brexit benefit, a change in farming. Now, it's a sort of baptism by fire, if you want, or maybe not the right term to use, but it is a very difficult way to change, destroying certain industries in order to get some small change in farming. But maybe this could actually be a Brexit benefit. Farmers who were producing crops will start to produce something a bit more... No, I'm struggling. I'm grasping here at straws here. Maybe changing farming practices, maybe something a bit more organic, but then you're still talking about higher prices here because it's much more expensive to produce organic produce. No, maybe you could, maybe if you twist and turn enough, you could find some sort of benefit here, but it is greatly outweighed by the cost. Tory internment camp, 5-star hotel. It's not a Brexit benefit, Max. It's basic localism. Yes. I did see something about a cheese producer who couldn't sell to the European Union, started trying to sell more locally. But then you're still talking about higher prices, and the customer base is going to be completely different. So yes, some businesses will actually be able to succeed. They may be able to benefit because they start to sell more artisan cheese at a higher price to a richer clientele locally. But we're talking about very, very small numbers here. And it's, in a sense, yes, they could benefit from being forced to do this, but it doesn't mean that they couldn't have done it before. It just means that Brexit has, in a sense, forced their hand. Also known as small-minded. Truss said imported cheese is a disgrace. Yes, I remember. It's a disgrace. German is spoken in Italy too. In South Tyrol, yes, it is. Not exactly. It's a type of German, as far as I know. It's not High German. It's sort of local German. Organic in our toxic soil. Good point. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we can have all this organic produce, but we're pumping raw sewage into the sea, into the rivers and lakes. Yay, okay. Vertical farming are required locally. The energy costs might be higher, however. And then, if there's a move towards renewable energy, then the higher energy costs would be not so much of a problem, I think. So there are many different things, but it's not like Brexit is some sort of catalyst to help these things. It's like forcing people to change. Some businesses will adapt. Some businesses will change and benefit from that change. Others will, of course, not be able to, and they will disappear. There was one of the very first videos, and I'm going to actually do a quick research maybe after the live stream about this. There was a glass eels producer, one of the very first videos I did on Brexit, and I'd actually like to find out how that business is doing at the moment. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was a very very specific type of industry, glass eels that they would sell to. So the video was talking about how this man was interviewed by UKIP, and he was telling UKIP, well, if we leave the EU, I'm going to be able to sell my glass eels to Ukraine and to Russia and to Belarus. War, okay, never mind that. But it turns out that he won't be able to do that because most of his market was in the EU, and in a sense he's been freaked because it's no longer possible to export these things. So it'd be interesting to find out what the situation with his business is today, or if anyone knows in the chat if you've heard about the glass eels guy. I bought European cheese from Switzerland and half of it was missing. Damn disgrace. With damn holes in it. Scooped out. Rumen13, great to see you on the stream. Good night. You're off you go. Okay, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. Just want to finish with one or two stories here. This is interesting. About Keir Starmer.
Members of the public, and this is a poll on June the 13th, Gerald Partners, that members of the public think you are boring, bland and dull. It's not very easy for me to say that to you because it feels a bit rude, but that's what... I mean, does that hurt you when... And do you think, oh, no, I'm not? I mean, what's happening that who you are doesn't seem to connect? Or are you a bit boring? I don't know.
So Keir Starmer was asked by Sky News, from Beth Rigby on Sky News, this question. So she said that there was a survey done of Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, and he was called dull and boring. And is he dull and boring? Well, if I was him, what I would have responded would be with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is not boring. Okay, so Boris Johnson is basically a clown. So if the standard is a clown, everything else is boring. So if I'm boring, it means I'm not a clown. Boris Johnson is the clown. His entire 3 years, 3.5 years, or whatever it is, 3 years in office has been a circus. And I'm sorry, I'm not a circus. I'm sorry, I'm not a ringmaster, or I'm not a clown myself. But I would like the British people to have something serious, not a joke. Ahmed, thanks so much for that super chat. Yay! Thank you so much. Very kind of you.
I don't think I am, and I don't think you think I am, Beth. But I'm not going to pretend that I think that politics is a branch of the entertainment business. It's not. Running the country is a really serious issue, and you need serious politicians to do it. One of the frustrations of the last 12 years is that we haven't had a serious strategy for growing our economy, taking the opportunities of the future. I think we need that. What I like is when we get out, we go around the country, talk to people where they are, whatever they're doing. Great interactions, whether it's people, communities, businesses, etc. And I often say to them, what do you want from a government? What's the thing that you want most? And none of them say to me, oh, we need a bit more entertainment here. We need a few one-liners. They say, I want someone serious who understands my life.
Boris Johnson is showbiz in a way, isn't he? In a way, he was showbiz and he was hugely successful. Well, so, I mean, in a telegenic age, maybe you do need a bit of entertainment in politics. I don't know.
Well, was he hugely successful?
No. You don't need entertainment in politics. You need somebody who's real. That's the problem. Boris Johnson is fake. Boris Johnson is pretend. And he's surrounded by people who are fake. I think most people would like somebody... You don't want the pilot of your plane to be funny but not actually able to fly the plane. You don't want your surgeon who's doing, I don't know, open heart surgery on you to be somebody who hasn't actually finished medical school but is, was the funniest guy in the class. You don't want that. You want somebody who's competent. Now, I understand the response from the public back in 2019 was partly, Yes, we want Boris Johnson because he's a bit rough around the edges and he's shake things up. But that was because people were tired of Brexit. People were bored with Brexit. They wanted somebody who would just ignore reality and go running into the nearest wall. And Boris Johnson said he'd do that. He would give people something to laugh at because they were, in a sense, bored with politics. But people are not bored with politics now. People are happy to see Boris Johnson go. Majority want Boris Johnson out. He says, okay, get rid of him. We need somebody who's competent. We need somebody who's honest. We need somebody who can do the job. Boris Johnson has demonstrated that he can't. So the class clown has had his moment. Now we have to get back to study. That's the way it should be. And I think that's the way Keir Starmer should present it. Yes, we've had our fun. People have had their fun for 3 years. Some people didn't find it very funny. I didn't find it very funny. Some people did, but the fun is over. Now we have to get back to work. Like in a classroom, the classroom joker acts like a clown for a few minutes, and then he sits down and the class continues. That's the way politics should be at the moment. It was a very long joke. It went on for 3 years, and a lot of people were hurt, both physically and emotionally, by that joke. But now it has to come to an end. We have to get back to normality. I think that's the way Keir Starmer should present it. I'm going to deal with the real problems. Boris Johnson wants to deal, and his party want to deal with invented problems. The joke, they want to continue the circus. No, we're not going to continue the circus. The circus has to be closed down. Richard Turner, thanks so much for that super chat. A good Prime Minister would be like a good football ref. Competent, let the game flow, but doesn't dominate the headlines. Good point. It's the thing that we would like, but the problem is the electorate. I hate to say that, but it's true. The problem are the voters. What do the voters actually want? Because you and I, we would like a leader who knows what they're doing, who cares about doing things correctly, doing it by the book, making sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. But the voters back in 2019 didn't want that. They wanted somebody to shake things up. They wanted somebody who was a bit rough around the edges. And they got a clown. Or they say, you vote for a clown, you get a circus.
Successful.
Well, I mean, he was electorally successful.
Well, he won an election. And I'm not failing to acknowledge that. Of course I acknowledge that.
But he won an election based on a lie. Like, this thing of Boris Johnson deserves some sort of respect because he won an election. But the election was based on a lie. He said he would get Brexit done. Now, of course, it meant nothing. It was empty rhetoric. But why is it this... And it's not just within the Conservative Party, but it's also in the media. Well, Boris Johnson won an 80-seat majority. Boris Johnson won an election back in 2019. Yes, but it was based on a frigging lie. He should have lost his majority because he lied. But he went on for 3 years. Tories mock a threat. Labour Party is a threat. Yes, well said, Ice Queen. Great to see you on the stream. Thanks so much for that super chat. Cavan Lad, thank you so much. Mike Trump, thank you very much. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. This idea that, Boris Johnson won a majority, then yes, we must respect that. You respect it if he won it based on truth. If there was a real change that was being presented, but it was based on a lie. I will get Brexit done. I will not put a border in the Irish Sea. I will build 40 hospitals. I will hire 20,000 police officers. I will recruit 40,000, 50,000 nurses. But he didn't do any of these things. So this idea that he has an 80-seat majority or he won an election is a pile of crap. It shouldn't be something that should be respected. Notice the Tories didn't kick him out because he lied about the manifesto. Based in the Murdoch scene. Not voting equals. Get on that. Bore them into voting. It was Brexit. We left. The Tories are the threat. It's not a mock. A 500-year-old threat to humanity. I've known 20 Boris Johnsons in my life. They all drove cabs. Can I get into the bank and pay my bills through corporate tax cuts? Also, what said Mark? That would be wonderful. If somebody to come up to Liz Truss and say, "You're going to help. How are you going to help people? Pay their. How are you going to help people with the cost of living? I'm going to cut tax. I'm going to cut taxes. Okay, so I can take these tax cuts to the energy company, and I don't have to pay the bills. Something like that. That'd be wonderful." Guys. Okay, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just want to cover one final story here about Ukraine.
Ships leaving Odessa port will pass close to this apartment block hit by the Russians 3 weeks ago. 21 people died. How to broker a deal about anything when this is the backdrop. But today, a deal was signed. And if it holds, it will mean that over 20 million tons of grain stuck in Ukrainian ports behind a Russian blockade can start to be exported through the Black Sea, thus averting chronic food insecurity for, by some estimates, up to 500 million people around the world.
So this grain has been blocked for months because of the war. Russia has blocked the export of this grain, and it's vital for many countries in Asia and in Africa to get access to this grain. Otherwise, they're facing mass starvation.
The Secretary General of the United Nations, one of the guarantors of the deal, described it like this.
Today, there is a beacon on the Black Sea, a beacon of hope, a beacon of possibility, a beacon of relief in a world that needs it more than ever.
It took months to get to this point. To underline the sensitivities, a hasty set change before the signing. A banner with the Ukrainian and Russian flags side by side had to be replaced with one in which the UN flags separated them. The ceremonial choreography really did matter this time. Ukraine and Russia are at war, so the agreement isn't between them. Instead, Russia signed a deal with the UN and Turkey, co-guarantors. Then moments later, the Ukrainians did the same. Here's the geography of all this. These are the main ports in areas controlled by the Russians. The vital ports around Odessa still in Ukrainian hands. Ships full of grain leaving the Black Sea exit through the Bosphorus and Istanbul. Ukraine accounts for about 10% of global wheat exports, which is why these routes matter so much. Just after the signing this afternoon, one of the owners of Odessa Port explained to us that a beacon vessel could guide out the first ship as early as next week.
This vessel will sort of be the beacon, will be the first one to go, and the merchant ships should be following him.
So by late next week, you're expecting a ship full of grain to be leaving Ukraine?
I think this is quite feasible. We know that there are 84 vessels in Ukraine right now. Some of them are fully loaded, some of them are half loaded, and I think one of those vessels will get crew and will start sailing as soon as possible.
Thrashing out the details of the agreement was a minefield, literally. Ukrainian ships will be guided along corridors through minefields at sea. A joint coordination centre will operate in Istanbul, part of its job inspecting cargo ships to make sure there's no military equipment on board. They are the details. The bigger picture, if the deal holds, hunger averted in developing countries, a shot in the arm to Ukraine's faltering economy. And who knows, perhaps a model for negotiations that could work when it comes to other aspects of this war.
Well, I've been speaking.
So let's hope that this is progress. I'm very skeptical about what Russia has been doing here. What is Russia getting out of this? So Russia is not obviously allowing this for no reason. They're getting something. Maybe there is some sort of agreement taking place behind closed doors to allow Russia access to certain technology or access to certain international money that's frozen at the moment. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but I'm sure Russia has received something in order to allow this to happen. And there's still a risk that, you know, the blockade may be reinforced and this agreement torn up by Russia. It remains to be seen. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that things do progress in the right way. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. We're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to finish with a one for the road, a funny video for us to finish off tonight. I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for all of the super chats. Greatly appreciated. Thanks to everyone who came on and smashed the like button. And remember, after the stream, we'll be on Discord, and I hope to see you on that if you're a Patreon. Enjoy this video before we go, of course.
As the race to be Prime Minister narrows to 2 final candidates, we're speaking to spokesmen for Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. Can I just say that we don't want any blue-on-blue attacks today? I quite agree, violence against the police is awful. No, I mean that we're not going to engage in any negative campaigning. I think people can just look at the 2 candidates and agree that the best man should win. Yes, just because somebody's completely screwed our economy doesn't mean he's a bad person. What will you actually do differently? Well, after 12 long years of mismanagement and decline, this country is in need of a change. Of government. No, of Prime Minister. It's like, if a fridge isn't working, what do? You replace the handle. Or hide inside and hope everyone goes away. When we win, we'll hit the ground like never before. The economy certainly will. So what would your man do differently? More smiling? Following the heat wave this week, climate change is a hot topic. Excuse the pun. Ha, what's a pun? What are your candidates' views on the environment and net zero? I just got it. We're going to keep the ban on onshore wind farms because although climate change is an existential threat that requires bold and immediate action, it isn't quite as important as the views from a few voters' second homes. Yes, as far as we're concerned, net zero refers to the number of Tory party members who will be alive in 2050. You're both bidding to replace Boris Johnson, and yet he remains quite popular among the membership of your party. What would you say to them? I'd say he was a good Prime Minister who got all the big calls right, but he was also dishonest and untrustworthy and had to be replaced as soon as we could work out how to use Squarespace to build our new website. He's been forced to resign in dishonour, and yet he'll be allowed to award honours to other people. Does that make sense? Well, Liz is a Conservative. For now. Actually, where she came from, most people thought that being a Conservative was a bad thing. She had to meet rich people before she realised they were wrong. Did you applaud Boris at the end of his last Prime Minister's questions? Yes, of course, otherwise I was worried he wouldn't leave. Yes, mostly for his hasta la vista comment, which was even funnier once people explained it to me. Both of your candidates were in his cabinet, so aren't they partly responsible for his failings? Well, Liz was Foreign Secretary, so she spent much of her time abroad, standing up to strong men, but not the one in her own country. But look, Rishi's travelled too, all over this United Kingdom, from Darlington in Scotland to Cheshire in Wales, raising taxes wherever he went. Only because Boris made him, but look, when he becomes Prime Minister, nobody will be able to tell Rishi what to do ever again. Well, except the electorate. Yes. You've both invoked Margaret Thatcher in your campaigns. Why is that? This country is calling out for her like a tiny bird that's lost its mother. We can't reanimate her corpse, God knows we've tried, but we can reanimate her policies and hope that works. Like a sort of Thatcherite cargo cult. What did you just call me? Tax cuts. What? We need tax cuts. That will just be inflationary. You're inflationary. At least I know what inflation is. So do I. It's woke, and therefore bad. There will be members of your party watching this, wondering why you're not focusing on the real enemy. Jeremy Corbyn. Well, the Labour Party. I was going to say the inexorable march of time. But yeah, let's go with that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So guys, news channel, thank you so much for that super chat. Get the Tories out because they keep lying to you, good people. Thank you so much for that. Yes, the Tories have to go. And I think, unfortunately, there's going to be a long wait before they can be out, because there's the requirement of a general election beforehand, and we're going to be stuck with Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak for at least, or hopefully no more than 2 years. Yes. So guys, I want to say thanks once again to everyone who came on. Thanks for all of the super chats. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you same time next Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. As always, have a great weekend and stay safe. Take care. Good night.